Om Namah Shivaya Ekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. On behalf of Sri Ramakrishna Vidyarthi Mandir, I offer my humble pranams at the lotus feet of Holy Trio, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Holy Mother Sri Sharada Devi, and Swami Vivekananda. We all offer pranams to most revered Swami Nityasanand Ji Maharaj, President Ramakrishna Math, Basavangudi, Bengaluru, for giving us an opportunity to arrange the ongoing lecture series named Knowledge is Power from last 2 months. We all Sri Ramakrishna Vidyarthi Mandiram students will remain grateful to our beloved Swamijis, Swami Tatyuktanandaji Maharaj, Warden of Sri Ramakrishna Vidyarthi Mandiram, and Swami Anilayanandaji Maharaj, Assistant Warden of Sri Ramakrishna Vidyarthi Mandiram, for guiding us in all situations, whether it before pandemic or during the pandemic or present, by arranging many thought-provoking events such as Knowledge is Power lecture series. Now I welcome Dr. Usha Vastare ji. She is the founder of Yogakshema Rehabilitation and Wellness Center of non-profit organization working towards enhancing quality of life of people. Before returning to India, she was resident of USA for more than 3 decades. She came to India with aim of bringing the latest scientific advances to the doorsteps of common people. While in USA, she was a faculty of Temple University School of Medicine, Philadelphia. She also essayed the role of clinical research project coordinator at the Center for Parkinson Disease and Movement Disorders, Pennsylvania. She has published over 70 research papers and abstracts in reputed journals and contributed to 5 books. She was academic research advisor of MDs, postdoctoral fellows, PhDs, and master's students. In India, she has worked with Dinabandhu Children's Home and continues to work with various NGOs. She is a mentor for various individuals and organizations. Dr. Usha Vastare workshops are based on the most recent advances in neuroscientific research and positive psychology. Her programs have been telecasted in leading television networks as well as in radio and newspapers. Dr. Usha Vastare's objective is to introduce practical and scientific method to lead a holistic life with full of zest and meaning. Now I now I will be handing over the dais to Dr. Usha Vastare to the lecture on the topic Power of Mind and Overcoming Uncertainties.
Revered Swami Tatyuktanandaji Maharaj and my dear students. It just gives me great pleasure to be sharing some of the recent advances in neuroscience research with the future of India. And not just India, future of humanity. That is how important the young minds of this country. Today, the topic that I've been given is how do we overcome uncertainty using the powers of our mind? I'm going to base the talk under these few topics. What are our powers of mind? And is there something that is certain? And how do we convert uncertainty to certainty? Also, how do we train our mind to deal with uncertainty? And not only that, and how do we train our mind to deal with certainty? Even that is equally important. Ultimately, it's about training our mind, right? And ultimately, why all of this is needed? The ultimate why. Why do we need to understand the power of mind? Why do we need to train our mind? And let us see this ultimate why, the Vivekananda way. But I'm going to take a totally scientific approach for Vivekananda's way of understanding the powers of our mind and also training our minds. And of course, we are all familiar with this saying of Swamiji that all power is within us. It lies within us. And using that power, we can do anything and everything. What is he talking about, this power? Right? If it is within us and we think it is hidden, not really. It is freely available for all of us. First, we need to understand what those powers are and how to use them to train our minds. So, what are those powers of our mind? I'm just going to list a few powers of our mind, and then you can keep relating all of this to your own life right now, what you're going through. Of course, we all know willpower is so very important, right? We have heard about willpower. Have we heard about won't power? Willpower is needed to be doing the things that we want to do. In a similar way, we need to have that won't power, to have that power to do, not to do the things, certain things. Equally important, willpower and won't power. And we also know about the focusing power, right? How do we focus? How do we concentrate on one thing? As much as we know about focusing power, concentration, there is another power which is equally important, and that is defocusing power, the power to defocus. You should be able to focus on something this moment, and you should be able to take your mind off of that and be able to focus on something else. That defocusing, and not just focusing on something else. And when we defocus, while we focus, we will be pinpointing. It is like, I'll just give you an example, you'll be able to understand. You go to your forest, you focus on a particular tree. That is the focusing power. If you have to understand the bigger picture, you need to defocus to be able to see the whole forest, right? That is the power to defocus. That is also equally important. Otherwise, we get caught up in little things and not be able to understand the big picture. Like, for example, what you're going through, all the self-regulations that you go through when you during your student days here at Mandiram, that will be focusing. You'll be only focusing on that. When you defocus and understand why is this so important, why is it so necessary, then you get the big picture. It is not just for you to go through all this right now, but it is for your life. You will be set for life when you make certain good habits that you will be able to understand when you defocus and see the big picture. To be able to see the big picture, you need to be defocusing. In a similar way, we know the discerning power or the discriminative power. In Sanskrit, we call that viveka or the vivechana shakti. Also, the power to recall. Yes, we study, but at the right time, we should be able to remember what we have studied, what we call it as memory power. Power to recall whatever we have learned, right? And also the power to choose. Just the power to choose. We all have that power. Only humans have this true power to choose, what we call it technically as free will. Humans have this power of free will, power to choose. And most importantly, self-awareness. All these powers are really very unique to human beings. And the self-awareness is one of the most important qualities of the powers of our mind, that we only humans have this power to exercise this power, to be aware of our own thoughts, to be aware of our own feelings, to be aware of our own belief system, to be aware of our own perception. All this, as we get older, the self-awareness can also increase and should increase. When we are young, many a times the self-awareness is not high, but as we grow, as we mature, as we evolve, the self-awareness gets heightened. This is one of the most important powers of our mind. So now, if I ask few people, why do we need to understand the powers of our mind, and why do we need to exercise our powers of mind? Various different people will come up with various answers, like what you see here. Students will, the first thing that will come to their mind is to improve their focusing power and the power to recall. Or it could be the next step is to achieve something great in our lives and to be successful. That is there for everybody. And also something that is common, we need to understand the powers of our mind because we need to increase our health and well-being, because there is a very close connection between our body and our mind. And not only there is a close connection between our body and mind, but also of our behavior. Many a times this we don't understand, that there is such a close connection between our body, mind, and behavior. And for many people, we need to use our powers of mind to improve our interpersonal relationships. As you get older, even now you understand how having friends and being with friends is so important. But as you get older, you will realize even much more than health, it is the interpersonal relationships, having good, functional, proper interpersonal relationships. Why is it so important? And of course, we all want to be happy and be happier. That is all for all of this, and also to reduce the suffering, whatever we go through. For all of this, we need to know how to use the powers of our mind to achieve all of these goals. But today, we're going to be focusing on how do we overcome uncertainty. If you ask me, this is such a great topic that Swamiji has given me. This is the underlying current, underlying foundation to understand this, for to achieve any of the above goals. It is that important. So that's about the powers of mind. Let's focus a bit on what is uncertainty. We've all heard this, right? The only thing that is certain is uncertainty. We've all heard this. If that is the case, is there anything that is absolutely certain? If you ask me, I would say, contrary to conventional wisdom, I would say, yes, there is. And if you ask me again and again, I will say yes and yes. There is certainly, there is something that is absolutely certain. Yes, right now, I can see many of your eyebrows raised when I say, yes, there is definitely something that is certain. When just a couple of seconds back, I have made a statement that is common for everybody. The only thing that is certain is uncertainty. If I'm going to make this bold statement and say, yes, there is something that is certain, what is it? And how do we deal with it? How to train our minds to understand what is uncertainty and what is that is absolutely certain. That is what we're going to see and review in the next half hour or so. So as soon as I say the word uncertainty, what comes to our mind? The first thing that comes to our mind is fear and anxiety. Anything that is uncertain, because we don't know what is going to happen. It is that fear of unknown. So those two words, fear and anxiety, come to our mind right away when we hear the word uncertainty. And a great saying by Saint Khalil Gibran says, this anxiety comes not just from thinking about the future, because that is the standard way of understanding anxiety, is because of if you keep thinking about the future, you become anxious, right? That is the saying. But he says it's not just about the thinking about future which makes us anxious, but it is wanting to control our future. Rather than controlling our future, there are other means. And Vivekananda has talked about it. Rather than controlling our future, we need to create the future the way we want it. Future is nothing but destiny, right? He's talked about this. You can create your own destiny of your lives. That is what Khalil Gibran has said in a very simple manner, simple terms. Because of wanting to control the future, if you try to control something, after some time, it's going to skip our mind, our hands. Rather than controlling something, we can actually create new path, new avenues for the future. And as we trod along that path towards the future, one thing we need to keep in mind is how do we travel on that path? How do we create that future with lot of joy and enthusiasm and hope, so much so that we can enjoy the path. So then the path itself can become the goal. So For us to be understanding this, there's a great saying by Wayne Dyer. He says, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. A profound statement. And let us see how we can actually start looking at anxiety, looking at fear, looking at uncertainty from a different perspective, so that the way we look at uncertainty with fear and anxiety will be gone, so that we should be able to look forward to even facing uncertainty, and also to look forward to how to deal with certainty too, and what is that certainty mean. So what is it? What is it that is causing this fear, anxiety of unknown, or fear and anxiety about the uncertainty of this of future, and especially in this pandemic days, and especially in this day and age? This is not just for students, for everybody, and not just for us in our country, everywhere. That fear of unknown, the uncertainty, the anxiety about future is so profound in this day and age. We need to understand what is it that is causing. When we look at it from a scientific perspective, that is what makes it so powerful, because this is not just for certain age of people, not just for certain socio-economic educational background, or not just for people of certain country, but it's for everybody, because science is about commonality. Whatever we're going to be discussing here, it is true across the border for anybody and everybody, whatever time it may be. That is the power of science. So what is it that is causing us? Whether we know it or not, all of us, without any exception, each and every one of us, whether we are president of a company or a farmer in the field, could be a professor or a student, a doctor or a patient, or a sadhu or a scientist, without any exception, each and everybody has this innate within us, what is called as negativity bias. So because of this, whether it is fear, anxiety, fear of unknown, uncertainty, or any of the negative things that we go through because of unknown future, is because of this negativity bias. So let's just spend the next several minutes trying to understand what this actually is, what is negativity bias, and how do we overcome? Is it possible to overcome? And how do we overcome? Because of this negativity bias, we have within us what is called as negative thoughts. Not just negative thoughts, but some of the negative thoughts, we may have this in a conscious manner, that is deliberate negative thoughts. But however, without putting any effort, some negative thoughts, or most of the negative thoughts, come spontaneously, automatically, so much so they're called automatic negative thoughts. Like what you see in the picture, ANTS, an acronym standing for automatic negative thoughts. So what happens when we have these ANTS? From now on, when I refer to ANTS, I'm referring to automatic negative thoughts. Just like what you see in the picture, unlike what you see in the picture you only see one type of ant. Unlike what you see in the picture, we have many different types of automatic negative thoughts. In nature, there are many different types of ants. It could be small ants, big ants, red ants, black ants. termites, fire ants, many different types of ants. In a similar manner, we also have many different types of automatic negative thoughts. We will just touch upon a few so that you will be able to recognize when you get such negative thoughts and to be able to either manage or to overcome such negative thoughts. What happens when we have such negative thoughts? Those automatic negative thoughts, when they go unnoticed and unchecked, when we don't understand what is happening with these automatic negative thoughts, those ants, they stick to our mind like Velcro. Whereas the positive thoughts, it could be positive thoughts, it could be positive feelings, positive memories, positive beliefs, positive experiences. There are many in each of our lives. However, such positive thoughts and feelings get washed off of our mind, just like the Teflon material that you see on a non-stick pan. They don't stick to the mind. Whereas the negative thoughts and feelings stick like Velcro, and the positive thoughts and feelings get washed off. This is the culprit. Not only the negative thoughts stick, and the ratio of negative thoughts to positive thoughts is also very different. So much so, at least there is 5-to-1 ratio for negative to positive thought. For every single positive thought, we get about 5 different negative thoughts. So not only the population of ants are more, and they stick forever in our mind, unlike the positive thoughts. That is like double whammy, as they say. So what are the different types of ants? I've just mentioned a few of them, but let's just focus on a couple of them here. Just like amongst the ants in the automatic negative thoughts, the blaming and defending, especially blaming ants, automatic negative thoughts, are very similar to termite population in nature. Just like when we get termites, we need to get rid of the termites right away. Otherwise, we know what happens. It will eat away the wood. In a similar manner, the blaming and defending ants are so poisonous, because when we have these blaming and defending ants, we will never, ever be able to learn anything. And especially as students, and not just for students, for anybody for that matter, but especially for students, you need to remember this forever, because whenever we get blaming ants, whenever we defend ourselves for the actions that we did not do, whenever we blame external situations or people for the things that either we should have done but we did not do, or we did something that we should not have done, just remember at that time, let your self-awareness be heightened in such a manner. Catch yourself, because at that time you remember it is a blaming and it's a termite, and I will never be able to learn anything if I keep at it. And of course, focusing mostly on the negative, because we have so many experiences during the day, but one little negative experience that might have happened sticks to our mind, and that is what we remember for throughout the day, and that again pulls us down. So remembering this, am I focusing on the negative aspect that has happened during the day? Just questioning yourself will help you to overcome. This is very important, because when we have these ants, and when they go unchecked and unnoticed, it is like wearing colored glasses. You might all be wearing white clothes, but if I have too many ants, I'll be wearing either rose-colored or black-colored glasses, and it will never look white. In a similar manner, somebody might be, the circumstances or your experiences might be either fine, neutral, positive. But if we have too many of these ants, we will only see the negative angle of the situation, negative perspective of certain people, just for you to keep in mind again. So just having certain negative thoughts are okay, because we know thoughts are fleeting, right? They come and go. But if we don't understand, and if you're not aware of these negative thoughts, then what happens? Those thoughts become thought patterns. And similar thought patterns, scientifically, technically, is what is called an attitude. And then if we let that go, that becomes a habit. And that habit is what leads to our personality, our character. Our personality is shaped again by a single thought. And that single thought, if that keeps repeating, especially if it is negative, when it keeps repeating, that is how finally it affects our personality. So we need to be aware of our thinking patterns, not just about negative thoughts, our negative thought patterns, to be aware of those, because those negative thoughts and negative thought patterns become our habits, thought habits. Why is this so important for us to understand about this negativity bias? If you ask me, this is why. When we have lot of negative ants, many a times we do, when we are stressed out, when we are under pressure, when we have tests and exams coming up, and if we are physically not fit, something physically, you are feeling low, or external conditions, as you might be facing a test or an exam, or you might have a fight with your close friends. All of this, if we don't know how to train our minds to be able to manage those negative emotions, in other words, when such ants go unchecked and unnoticed, you can watch from now on. Our mind oscillates like a pendulum between our past and our future. So much so, we look at the past with regret, and we look at the future with full of anxiety and pessimism. And not only that, whatever is happening in the present moment is, we are never satisfied with the present moment. Even though when everything is going great, you cannot even pinpoint, you cannot know how to place it. You won't even know, it seems very vague and generalized, but whatever is happening in the present moment, you're not satisfied with that. This is the culprit. So much so, because our mind oscillates between past and future, we can never ever be in the present moment, here and now, now and here. I want to take 2 more moments and make you understand the importance of being in the present moment, here and now, now and here. Because if you think about it just a little deeper, you will see that there is nothing like past and there is nothing like future. Past and future exist only as mental constructs, which means it's only at the level of mind we have past and future, only at the level of thoughts, only at the level of feelings. We have past and future. When past was happening, it was present. I know it does not make sense if you look into the English grammar. But when past was happening, it was present at that time. And future hasn't happened yet. But when future is going to happen, when tomorrow comes, tomorrow will be present, tomorrow will be today. In terms of our actions, in terms of our doing things, which means we can do things, we can perform any action only in the present moment. You can plan ahead, you can worry about the past, regret about the past, all of that at the mental level, mental constructs. But that is only at the thought level. Anything and everything, only when we put it into action will we get results, right? If you're hungry, you got to eat to overcome that hunger. If you're thirsty, you have to drink water to overcome thirst. No amount of thinking about the water will quench your thirst. No amount of seeing pictures of foods will satisfy our hunger. We need to act upon it. The actions are so important. But the mind is always oscillating between past and future. It never allows us to be in the present moment. We will always be at the level of thinking only. We might be thinking sometimes just positive thoughts, but just thinking positive is not going to be enough, as you see, because for any action, it has to be put into actions. This is extremely important. And then I will build upon this as we go along, this concept of here and now and here. Why this present moment is so important, and we need to learn how to be in the present moment. We may understand this at an intellectual level. Just intellectual understanding is not going to be enough. We need to understand how can we be in this present moment. That is what we will see in the next 10-15 minutes. But before that, again, when we have too many of these unchecked ants, what happens? It affects our learning. It affects our concentration. It affects our memory. It affects our health, because thoughts release chemicals. They release chemicals in the brain, and those chemicals just don't stay in the brain. They get distributed throughout the body, and over a period of time, those, especially the negative thoughts, releasing negative chemicals, will have adverse effects on our health. And not just on our health, and also on our happiness. So much so, when these ants go unchecked and unnoticed, they affect our entire life itself. If that is the case, then how do we deal with this? But before that, let us see what are the kinds of excuses that we give when we have too many ants in our mind. Keep saying, oh, I can't help it. This is the way I am. I can't even help it because this is in my genes. Because my father has told me I am just like my grandfather. So short-tempered. How can I help? It is in my genes. These are the reasons that we gave. Even when you look at it in a scientific way, I won't go into that detail here, but the new epigenetic research has shown there might be certain genes that we are predisposed to, but they don't have to get expressed if we know how to make certain lifestyle changes. I'll just say that and leave it at that, because that is not going to be directly concerned to what we are talking about today. And this is another favorite reason we give. I'm only like this because of the circumstances, because of COVID. Otherwise, I was not like this. And I'm also like this because of my friends. Last year, my roommate was different. We were getting along so fine. But this year, I don't like that friend. Only because of that, I get so angry so quickly. We keep giving these reasons. We think they are the reasons, but actually, they are nothing but excuses. So when we do that, what are the consequences of these unchecked, unnoticed ants that we may have? When we have too many of those, we might have plans, we might have goals, but it won't help us to reach the goals. The negativity or the ants are what prevent us to reach our goals. So we cannot be what we want to be. We cannot be what we aspire to be in the future. And we know there are certain habits that we have, we would like to change, but it's not that easy to change because of these ants, unchecked and unnoticed ants. We know we need to be studying proactively, not just the day before the test. We know all of that. We know we want to be proactive and prepare well in advance, but it won't allow us. It won't allow us to be proactive. Just like all those excuses that we gave, I had just mentioned only a few. We can come up with plenty more of those excuses why we cannot be proactive. So we end up only studying the day before the test and get stressed out many a times. And not only that, we cannot be as empathetic as we would like to be. And we know we were quite empathetic and kind, especially when it came to our younger sisters or brothers or our moms at home. These days, we cannot be as empathetic at all. And then you wonder why. These are the ants that prevent us to be kind, to be empathetic, to be compassionate, to be loving to our parents, to our siblings, to our friends. And more than anything, we do get so frustrated with this. We don't know how to get rid of it. And moreover, not only with us, even before we can know what is happening within us or these ants, we can easily say about the ants about other people. So if we can learn to focus on ourselves, to heighten our self-awareness, so we can identify our own ants so that we will be able to change those ants using the powers of our mind, what Vivekananda has said, using that power, and then you can achieve anything that you want. So to get rid of these ants, there is no colored pill that comes in a white bottle that we can take it in and get rid of the ants. The only way we can get rid of this is through knowledge, to become aware of these ants and to be able to overcome these. So how do we overcome these ants? I'm just going to take this shloka that you all know. Would you like to recite this? You know all of these shlokas. Why don't you go ahead and recite this? Beautiful shloka, right? Dhyana Yoga shloka in Bhagavad Gita. This you elevate yourself through the power of your own mind. Because I might say many things. Swamiji can give you a lot of suggestions, help you build habits, but ultimately it is you who has to change your minds and elevate your minds by yourself. Nobody else can help, is what the shloka is telling us. And how do we do that? Using our own mind. And this is what leads us to understand a new concept in neuroscience, especially what Yogakshema has been working on, this concept of neurosculpting. I'll just quickly go over with you and then see what it means. You see in the picture about a sculptor, right? What does a sculptor do? Unlike an artist who paints, a sculptor doesn't have anything or doesn't use anything from outside to make, as you see Hanumanji here. He has tools, yes. Like an artist, a painter, he doesn't use paint from outside to create his masterpiece, right? What does a sculptor do? First, he will get a huge boulder, and then he sees Hanumanji in that boulder, like what you see in the picture. He knows where exactly Hanumanji's hand should come, where should be the head. Through his inner eye, through his creativity, he can see Hanumanji in that big boulder. What he does is to remove the stone that is not Hanumanji. That is so simple. All he does is to remove everything that is not Hanumanji, and that is how he creates the masterpiece. That is what the role of a sculptor, right? It's very profound. All he does is to remove. In a similar manner, we can be neurosculptors of our own lives. We don't need this negative thoughts and negative feelings and negative belief system. All we need to do is to remove this negativity away from us. And what remains is what we want. Unlike a sculptor, wherein he needs some tools like a chisel, a hammer, to sculpt out, to take out whatever is not needed, we don't even need such tools from outside. We don't even need a stone, unlike that sculptor. We have everything within us. We are that marble, we are that sculpture, and we are the sculptors. 3 in 1. Our brain itself is the marble. And what is that sculpture? Whatever you want to be in the future, whatever you want to achieve in the future, that becomes the sculpture. And who is the sculptor? That is you. You will be a sculptor, and then you can be a neurosculptor. This is where I remember Swamiji's statement, which is what we will say in a moment. But this whole process of neurosculpting, removing ants, unwanted ants from our mind, this process is called neuroplasticity. We will go into this a little bit more detail so that you will be able to appreciate and see and understand the closeness or the way the present neuroscience research is heading towards, and whatever we use different terminologies in science, but whatever I'm speaking is all of it is already in our scriptures. You will see that. So this is where, remember Swamiji's statement that you make your own destiny, you create your own future. You are the creator of your own destiny. How can you do that? By being a neurosculptor. So what are the tools that we need to use to chisel out the ants, unwanted ants that we have? That is nothing but all the powers of our mind that I mentioned earlier, using those powers, our willpower, wound power, discerning power, the power to choose, and the self-awareness. All these are the tools for us to become neurosculptors of our own lives. This is how you create your own destiny. So let's set that aside, and then we will come back to what is mind? Where do these ants come from? So for that, we will go just a bit deeper into the brain itself, the structure of brain and the types of mind, so that we will be able to recognize the ants that we get, and we will be able to know which part of the brain the ants come from and which part of the brain we need to use to remove these ants. So first, it's about the mind. Very simply, I'm just going to put it in plain English so that you will be able to implement this in daily lives. Unlike talking in Greek and Latin and using all Greek and Latin words for different parts of the brain, I will keep it really, really simple. Not only plain English terms, we will also use the terms that we use every day in Sanskrit also, so that it will make it easier for us to recognize where do these ants are coming from and what type of mind we need to use to remove these ants. As I said, there are two types of mind. One is the habitual mind. And this is where the fear, anxiety, all come from our habitual mind. And this is that we are on that autopilot mode. We don't need to put any effort for this. It happens habitually. Whereas the other type of mind is called willful mind. It's also called conscious mind or the rational mind, which is used a lot for us to learn something new. If we need to change something that we don't like in ourselves, we need to be using this willful mind or conscious mind. And this is what we definitely need to use to truly evolve into better human beings. And the Sanskrit words for these two types of minds are nothing but manas and buddhi. See, scientifically, we call both of them two types of mind, whereas in Sanskrit, it makes it even simpler, manas and buddhi. From the manas, we get these ants. Whereas we need to use our buddhi to be able to remove those ants and overcome these ants. Does that make sense now? And then, but we will see even the next slide, it will make more sense when you will see where these ants are coming from with respect to the brain itself. What you see in the slide is something what you're seeing here in this model of the brain. What you're seeing outside is nothing but what you see there as simple as higher center of the brain, which is just beneath the skull that we have. And that is the higher center of the brain. From that higher center of the brain, we get the buddhi. Whereas the lower center of the brain, what you see here as colored parts of the brain, from this our manas come about. And from this lower center of the brain, our ants come from the lower center of the brain. Whenever we say we are stressed out, it is from the lower center of the brain. When it gets activated too much, either we get stressed out or we get too much negativity when the lower center of the brain gets activated, which means we need to be using the higher center of the brain, which is part of the brain that makes us human. Extremely important to know. The lower center of the brain, what we have, work very similar in all the other animals, including reptiles. So much so, a tiny part of this lower center of the brain is called the reptilian brain. We need to be using the part of the brain that makes us human to be able to overcome some of the unwanted ants and stress that we have. In other words, we need to be using our buddhi to overcome the ants that come from the mind itself. Just one tiny aspect that we need to understand here before I go into little bit science of this and then give you a tool. Can I take about 10 more minutes, Swamiji? So one important aspect that we need to know, thoughts just come to us, right? They are real because every thought we get releases a chemical. And every thought when we get, it produces electrical changes in the brain. That means it is real. But just because it is real, all thoughts are not true. Very important concept for us to remember. So anytime we get this thought, we need to put it into a true or false test to test ourselves. Whatever thought I'm getting, is this true or not? Just to keep this in the back of our mind when you become aware of your own thoughts. Again, using this shloka, let me ask you to recite before going in. The next slide. Go ahead if you want to. Bandhuratma manastasya So we know our own mind is our friend and it's also our own enemy. So what happens when we conquer the mind, when we train our mind? What happens? What happens to our brain when we change our mind or train our mind? What happens to our life when we train our mind? This is where the recent advances in neuroscience research, consisting of Dalai Lama's challenge to the Western neuroscientists, come about, wherein Dalai Lama posed a challenge saying that if you change your mind in a particular way, you can actually change the very structure of the brain, which is very much needed if you want to change anything in life. Just changing the mind is not going to be enough, but we need to change the very structure of the brain itself. Then only we will be able to make long-lasting changes in our lives. So when he posed the question, the Western neuroscientists wouldn't buy into that. But luckily, at that time, there was new technology like fMRI, SPECT scans, PET scans that were available, wherein they could study the brain longitudinally over a period of time to see the changes that were happening in the brain. And Dalai Lama also sent many of the Buddhist monks who had many thousands and thousands of hours of meditative experience to be used to study the brains of the monks who were trained in meditation techniques. When the brains of the monks who were trained in meditation, anywhere from 5,000 to 30,000 hours of meditation, when those brains were compared with people who had never done any meditation at all, what we call it as control group, there were drastic, significant differences in the brains of the Buddhist monks. This proved over and over again that if we change our mind through meditation or through training, whichever way, those terms, whichever one you want to use, it doesn't matter. And not just through meditation, in many deeper ways. Every moment we'll be able to train our mind. If we do this in a systematic, organized way, not in a flippant way to change our minds, but in a highly systematic, deliberate, conscious ways. If we learn to change our minds, in other words, if we learn to train our minds in a deliberate manner, we certainly can change the very structure of the brain, so much so our whole life can be changed. And all of this, whatever I said, this is what is represented in this slide, wherein it says, if we change our thoughts, we can change our brain. If we change our feelings, we can change our brain. If we change our perception, we can change our brain. If we change our belief system, we can change our brain. If we change our mindset, we can change our brain. But more importantly, we need to change our habits. We need to change our actions. We need to change our experience to be able to change the very structure of the brain. And why do we need to change the structure of the brain? Just so we can have long-lasting changes in our life. So much so, this is so important. Just having positive thoughts are not going to be enough. Those positive thoughts, whenever we read Swamiji's quotes, our mind goes very high, right? Because we're only thinking about positive thoughts, but just thinking about positive thoughts are not going to be enough. Those positive thoughts have to be followed by positive feelings. But again, just having positive thoughts and positive feelings are not going to be enough. Both of these have to be followed by positive actions to make long-lasting changes in our lives. That action is so very important. And as I said, that whole process is nothing but neuroplasticity. So coming back in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to close up, conclude. But before that, as I said, is there something that is absolutely certain? As I have said earlier, absolutely, certainly, yes, yes, and yes. If that is the case, then what is it? What is it that is certain? Lo and behold, we would never have thought about it. We were thinking of something that is concrete or tangible. Oh, is it something that is certain? No, it is this present moment that is most certain. Now, if you see, because of the negativity bias that is within us, because the unchecked, unnoticed ants will not allow us to be in the present moment, it makes us like a pendulum to go back and forth between past and future. We are never in the present moment. And even if we are in the present moment, we don't know how to be in the present moment to make full use of it so that we can understand this is the only thing that is certain. So even if we are in the present moment, if we are unsatisfied and if it is filled with negativity, again, that is not going to help. We need to learn how to be in this present moment, here and now and here. And how should we be in that present moment? We need to practice being in the now. This is what is called as Mano Jayaha, not mind control, but conquering the mind, as it said in Bhagavad Gita shloka. So how do we practice being in the present moment? That is very simply by being mindful. Mindful is all about both body and mind together in the same place at the same time. Many times the body will be here, the mind is elsewhere. It can be in so many thousands of miles away, or it can be years ahead of us, or hundreds of years back. That does not help. both body and mind together in the same place at the same time. And it also should be highly focused, concentrated, highly paying complete attention to whatever is happening in the present moment. And that too in a non-judgmental way, not focusing, concentrating both body and mind together in the same place at the same time. But while studying, oh my God, I'm so glad I don't have to study this math anymore next year. This is going to be the last year. That doesn't make us mindful. Without judging, if we can pay full attention to whatever we are doing, and both body and mind together in the same place at the same time, is what mindful is all about. And that is how we pay attention to the present moment, because present moment is the only thing that is certain. We don't know what is going to happen the next moment. So for Manojaya or for mind training, all you need to do is to take care of one moment at a time. Just take care of single moment, and moment to moment basis, you can be training your mind. So how do we move from uncertainty to certainty? Now we know all we have is this present moment. And this present moment is the only thing that is certain for us. Nothing else is certain except this present moment. And in that present moment, we need to be not only thinking positively, feeling positively, but also doing things in a positive manner. This is where, again, Swamiji's saying comes to my mind, wherein he talks about, this is again one of all of our favorite sayings of Swamiji, wherein he says, you just take up one idea at a time and let that idea be completely consumed all over the body. Let that idea be in each and every cell of the body, right? Each and every cell, muscle, nerve of that body. And let you be consumed totally by that single idea. And that is the way to success, he says. And that idea, what he's talking about, is nothing but, scientifically, we call that a thought. So how do we train our minds for a life of certainty? Everything begins from a thought, and it becomes from a single thought, like Swamiji said. Take up one idea, single idea. And that single idea has to end up as action. Extremely important. And when can we do that if it has to end up in action? Only in the present moment. And the last, I said, the ultimate why. This is my last slide. What does Swamiji say? He says, manifest this divinity within you, and everything will be harmoniously arranged around it. This is the ultimate why. We need to understand the powers of our mind. We need to understand why we need to overcome the negativity bias that is already within us, in each and every one of us. Swamiji calls this manifesting this divinity. And as a scientist, this is what I call that as to be evolving. This is the ultimate why. We need to understand our mind and to be using the powers of our mind to be expressing and manifesting the divinity that is already within us, or to be evolving as better human beings. Thank you. Yes.
How to avoid procrastinating?
Procrastination, ಮುಂದೂಡುವಿಕೆ. ನಾಳೆ ಮಾಡೋಣ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಮಾಡೋಣ, ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ನಾಳೆ ಮಾಡೋಣ. If we can understand the power of now, we can never procrastinate. Because procrastination happens in an automatic way. If we plan and then say, I'm going to do it the next day, it is okay. That is not procrastination. That is using our conscious mind. ನಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರಜ್ಞಾಪೂರ್ವಕ ಮನಸ್ಸನ್ನ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಾನು ನಾಳೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಸಂಕಲ್ಪ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಮುಂದೂಡುವಿಕೆ ಅಲ್ಲ. ನಾವು ಆಟೋಮ್ಯಾಟಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಚುವಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ನಾಳೆ ಮಾಡೋಣ ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಬರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಅದು procrastination. So all I ask you is, if you don't feel like doing that day, then make a firm, with conviction, say to yourself, I'm going to do this tomorrow. Give yourself a certain time that I will do it and then you do. Aga adan madidre, then you're planning. When you're planning, you're using your conscious mind. Now, ಏನ್ ಪ್ಲಾನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಬುದ್ಧಿನ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ತೀವಿ, ಮನಸ್ಸನ್ನು ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸಲ್ಲ. ಬುದ್ಧಿನ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಅದಾಗತ್ತೆ. Procrastination comes from the lower center of the brain. ಅಥವಾ ನಮ್ಮ ಮನಸ್ಸಿನಿಂದ ಬರೋದು. ನಮ್ಮ ಬುದ್ಧಿನ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಪ್ಲಾನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಬಟ್ ಅದು ಮತ್ತೆ ಬುದ್ಧಿ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟ್. ಅಗೇನ್ ಅದು ಬುದ್ಧಿ ಅಲ್ಲ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ತಿರೋದು, ಮನಸ್ಸನ್ನ. So just understand this is the only moment that I have, and I have to be doing the right thing all that time. ಅದನ್ನು ಒಂದು ಸಂಕಲ್ಪ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ, we know how to do things right, but do we always know how to do the right thing? There is a big difference between doing the right thing and doing things right. We need to focus on doing right thing each time, every time, and learning to do things right will automatically happen.
In continuation with this,
Yeah.
I've observed we avoid procrastination when we have an immediate consequence. For example, if we have an exam tomorrow, we avoid the procrastination. But if we have the exam next year, we procrastinate. So this is what is happening in us. So how to set that tomorrow? We need not wait for the exam till the last day. So how to set that tomorrow, to avoid those procrastination?
ನಮ್ಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ದಾಗ, when we have too many ants, proactive ಆಗಿ ಮಾಡೋದು ಹೊರಟೋಗ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. It is all because of negativity. Again, the only way is through knowledge. ನಾನು ಏನೇ ಒಂದು ಟು ಡೂ ಹಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಲಿಸ್ಟ್ ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ, ಬಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು ನಾವೇ ತಾನೇ. ಈಚ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಟು ಡೂ ದಟ್, ಅಂಡ್ ದಟ್ ಆ ಸಂಕಲ್ಪ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಮಾಡದೆ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಕಾನ್ಸಿಕ್ವೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಅಂತ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಯಾತಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ? ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಟುಮಾರೋ, ವಿಚ್ ಇಸ್ it is the fear that is goading us. It is the fear that is motivating us to study. If we can make a shift, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. Rather than using fear as a way to study, love for learning. Love for learning is a better motivator than the fear of failing. Fear is also very powerful motivator. Definitely, yes. But if we can make a shift from the fear mindset to learning to love whatever we do kind of mindset, what we call that as growth mindset, then we can be lifelong learners. And especially in this day and age, for any age for that matter, for any individual, doesn't matter what age that person is, but in this present time, to develop that lifelong learning is extremely important. It's one of the 21st century skills that all of us need to have to develop a love for learning. When we develop that love for learning, we'll never procrastinate.
ಮೈಂಡ್ ಒಂದ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಇರ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಅದೊಂದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಫೋಕಸ್ ಇರಲ್ಲ. ಮೈಂಡ್
Simple thing, we know meditation ತುಂಬಾ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಆಗತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ನಮ್ಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತು. But if I have to take a scientific term and then explain, just simple mindful breathing exercise will help us to focus better on one thing. But ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಹೊತ್ತು ಕೆಲವು ಸಾಲಿ if we have not practiced meditation for a length of time, ನಾವ್ 20 ನಿಮಿಷ ಕೂತಿದ್ರು ನಮ್ಗದು ಫೋಕಸ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಆಗೋದು ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ just few seconds or fraction of a second. So it takes a while. You need to believe that this is what is helping to focus, helping to concentrate, helping or decreasing that mind chatter. ಅಥವಾ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆ ಮನಸ್ಸು ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗೋದನ್ನ ನಿಲ್ಸೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಅದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ನಾನು ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀನಿ this using this tool ಅಂತ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡು whatever we do, if we understand why we are doing, that itself will empower us. So even as simple as 5 minutes of mindful breathing, sitting at the same place, same time, every day, each day, over a period of time. Science has shown by showing pictures of the brain how it changes, it definitely helps. And we know the prefrontal cortex activity is increased because that is the region of the brain that we use when we are focusing a lot. So one dina maadi, eradu dina maadi bidodalla, that consistency. Practicing, practice at the same time, same place every day is simplest way to improve our focus.
Thank you.
When we had offline classes, we used to blame like we don't have time for study due to the long routine. So that was our reason for not studying. When we got this COVID opportunity and we did not have any offline classes, the transport time was saved and all of these things were saved. But now we couldn't understand anything, so we did not study. So in that way also we are thinking negative, and in this way also we are thinking the same negative. So how to convert this challenges into opportunity?
Great question again. Coming up with really good questions. It's okay. Past is gone. Now you know. As I said earlier, that negativity we can only overcome through the knowledge of our own. Not because somebody else says this. No matter how much I can tell you, I think I'm trying to convince you, and that will not help. We need to be convinced ourselves. We need to be convinced in science to be able to tell, okay, I am going to be the loser if I don't make use of the opportunities. Even converting the challenges to opportunities, it's only through knowledge, not by any external means. As I said, as you rightly said, that was, we were feeling negative even before. We were thinking in a negative manner when we had offline classes, and even with online classes, we are saying giving the same excuse. That means we did not know that this was negative, this is affecting us, or even if you knew just at an intellectual level, in the sense we would repeat those words because we have heard it from elders. But if we really think just a little bit deeply, it truly makes sense, right? And another thing, times like that, we have to have certain ideas of concepts that we need to hold on to, saying that there is no right or wrong in this, because science will not take a moral approach. However, science says if you have such thoughts, if you have such behaviors, then you are going to face these consequences. If we can understand that concept of whatever we are doing or whatever we are not doing, whatever it may be, we are going to face our own consequences. Nothing from outside. If we can understand this concept, it is very profound. Not that it is right or wrong. Right or wrong means we are taking a moralistic approach. But if we say, I'm the one who is going to face the consequences, that is where it will help us. And being in a group which also has similar ideas and thought patterns and behaviors will also help a lot to be in such circumstances which will inculcate good behaviors and good habits will certainly help. And you guys certainly have that kind of an atmosphere which is so positive to be able to inculcate really good habits. And truly you will be able to realize this once you're out of this. There are some old alumni here. You can ask them how they will appreciate the kind of good habits that they developed when they were young. This is for our life. Because anything to be successful, we think it is intelligence that is important. Yes, it is, but it's only a small part. It is the self-discipline, self-regulation is so important to be successful. I cannot stress more on that point. It's all about it. At this young age, you'll be surprised. Youngsters have a lot more willpower than people like me. Youngsters naturally have a lot of willpower. Elders have a lot of viveka, the discerning power, what is right and what is wrong. You may not have that kind of discerning power, but you have willpower. As long as you read the right books or be exposed to the right things, that viveka can come from outside, but the willpower only you can develop. And use that willpower and get all that right knowledge from outside, from books, from the satsanga here. And that is what will help you to be successful.
सर्वयज्ञेश्वरो हरिः तस्मिन् सृष्टे जगत्कृष्णं प्रणीते प्रणीतं जगत् हरि ओम तत्सत् श्रीरामकृष्णार्पणमस्तु।